Hi there, Fire Dad here, and Merry Christmas. Here's your Halloween episode. I have to apologize for the delay. I know it took a long time to come out. We had some scheduling conflicts, so unfortunately, it was very, very delayed. So I know it's not the Halloween spirit anymore, but we always have next year. And I'm really excited for coming up on January. We're going to have a second co-host named Silver Chaos. They're a lovely friend of mine that's really excited to talk about their favorite Undertale AUs. And hopefully we'll have a few Undertale AU creators on in the coming year as well. Aside from that, I hope you enjoy the episode and you all have a wonderful holiday. Hello, and welcome to our Halloween edition of Underlore. I am Fire Dad.
And I'm Flame Mom. Ooh.
Ooh, and we're here coming to you today to show you our snazzy new Halloween costumes. Flame Mom, would you like to take a look at our costumes and guess who we're going to talk about today?
Oh my gosh, yes please. I love it.
Can you guess who we are talking about today?
We're gonna talk about some spooky Sanses today, I assume.
Some spooky Sanses. Okay. We are talking about Killer and Murder Sans today.
Woohoo!
I'll go ahead and preface this part of the recording that this episode is a recording from two different sessions, just so our people know that I'm going to be editing this episode from two different sessions. So just because I felt like in the original recording that maybe the material wasn't very engaging, and we kind of talked more about like really technical stuff and not really a lot about the actual AUs themselves. So just so our audience knows.
So right off the bat, do you have any questions now that I've splashed you in this costume, someone you don't know?
Well, first of all, I love it. The baby calcifers always make my day. I mean, other than the fact that they probably will go stabby at some point in their worlds, I don't really have any questions.
Now, I know you requested us to do Horror Sans, and I would like to cover Horrortale eventually. But we're not going to wait till like next Halloween to do it. So hopefully we will cover Horrortale at some point. I don't think this year, but at least next year. So
Cool.
Everyone, don't worry about that. We won't wait a whole year before covering Horrortale. However, because Killer is actually in Underverse, I figured we should cover him first. And his story nicely parallels with what's happening with Murder/Dust Sans. So I figure we should just go ahead and do both of them in one episode.
Cool.
Yeah, Rahaf Wabas is the creator of Killer Sans.
Ooh.
And I believe their first language is Arabic. And the first publication, Killer's AU, is called Something New. It was published on April 28th, 2016. And it was in Arabic originally. It was then later translated into English on May 1st, 2016 on the same blog. It's a really very short comic, and it just goes over Sans has like made a deal with Kara, and we see them kind of killing monsters together. The comic really kind of starts like where they've already made this agreement. And I think there's like bits and pieces of art where it kind of goes back over the conflict later. But the original art is just already setting up this scenario that this has already happened.
Gotcha. All the art that is under their hashtag is really cool.
So what's really unique about Killer is that his AU really doesn't, and I think it kind of makes sense, his AU really doesn't require that much thought or development to it. It's pretty much just Sans kind of going through the original OG routine, meeting the player in the judgment hall and fighting over and over and over and over again. Kara in this universe is evil, because I know a lot of different universes, Kara is either neutral or actually good, but in Killer's universe, Kara is evil. We see Kara basically say, why don't we try something new? You know, we're just going to keep killing you over and over again. Why don't you just join us? And I think Killer at first has some hesitation, but eventually gives in once like he's kind of lost all like his empathy and feelings and everything. And then Kara possesses him. So the red circle that we see floating outside of his body is his soul. And essentially the kind of idea is that Kara's soul is fusing with Sansa's soul, but it won't fuse completely and it won't go back inside the body. That's why we have
Oh,
that
okay.
target that floats outside of his chest.
Okay, cool.
Rahaf Wabas, or Rahaf, I think they tend to go by short. They almost right away, as soon as they kind of explained who Killer was in the initial comic, immediately started having him interact with the multiverse. He started first interacting with Sans from Underswap on May 7th, 2016. And I would like to say, can we please stop using blue to get beaten up every time we need to introduce an evil Sans? Can we leave him alone, please? Thank you.
Although, man, their art of Blue is adorable. I love it.
Oh yes, Blue is. I find Blue always adorable. I know there's a lot of controversy around him because of what the fandom interprets him to be versus what he originally was. Honestly, I like both versions. We're we're not here to talk about Blue.
True.
I just had to bring that up because I had to read through these comics and I was like, why is it we always use Blue getting beaten up every time we need to introduce an evil Sans? But yeah, so the comic kind of starts with Blue trying to save Killer and redeem him, but it doesn't really work. And they kind of were going along with this story, but they didn't really continue it. The last publication of like the Blue and Killer story ended around October 1st, 2016, and it was never really resolved. The last thing we see is like Killer and Swap Papyrus like duking it out, but it's in a flashback, so we know that Blue gets injured, but he does get out alive. So kind of tell that much. So it's kind of sort of resolved, kind of not.
Hmm.
And then on May 19th, they published this painting showing Error, Dust, and Killer, along with a second piece with Blue, Dream, and Ink. Now, in these days, I think the fandom was still working out how the different groups in the multiverse were going to work. So you will see Error grouped a lot of times with these guys because he's just a bad Sans. But I strongly headcanon that Error would never work for anyone, at least canon Error wouldn't.
Yeah.
But I do see like Error. You will see Error a lot just hanging out with the bad Sanses in a lot of artwork.
It seems so that, I mean, another, like, smaller thread that may connect them is just color aesthetic. Just the idea that a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
them either share a black, red, dark blue theme or a bright blue and like other bright colors, which seems I'm solely looking at the pictures that you've presented.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
I like it
definitely.
because color.
Yeah, definitely. We do kind of see like the red theme colored over carried over. We see the star theme covered over with the star Sanses and the light blues. And I think that's just there's certain color schemes you have to use that to be able to tell that the Sans you're having is still a Sans. And then a lot of times the red just fits in very well with that color scheme.
Hmm.
Okay, the next comic that's after that image, it was published on May 27th, 2016, where someone on Rahaf's blog asked, what's the difference between Murder Sands and Killer Sands? And they did this excellent comic that really shows kind of how the two different Sanses are different from each other. Murder Sands, he talks to a hallucination of Papyrus. I think with Killer Sands, it's more of a memory. It's not a hallucination.
Yeah, he feels sick
Um,
sometimes for killing Papyrus.
yeah,
More like an inner guilt.
yeah,
Looking
yeah,
at that one first block. The poor thing
yeah.
also needs some tissues.
Yes, they do. Um, yeah, Murder Sands has the glowing eye, while Killer Sands has the bleeding eyes.
And then in that last one, it seems like the last block for the Killer Sans column comic seems to be that he is. I don't personally know how to describe it, other than he's got very distinct facets of personality, perhaps. And I could be very wrong in my description, but that's what it seems to me that it looks like. And then Murder Sans is just more
Oh, so you're talking about
And
the chart that shows the soul?
the one that I'm looking at on my end is the one that on the top says Murder Sands versus Killer Sands, and then it's got like the two column comics
Yeah,
that are right
yeah.
together
Uh-huh.
next to each other. And then I'm looking at like the two on the bottom that compare the two, and on the left it says sometimes he snaps, and that shows Murder
Okay.
Sands, and then the one on
Yeah.
the right shows separated personality.
Yeah, it's Murder Sand's kind of like it's very quick and snappy, while there with Killer it's more of a distinct shift in like his behavior.
Okay, cool.
I'm not totally sure exactly what that those two frames are conveying. I think I kind of understand it because what's happening with Murder is he's not being possessed. There's nothing actually weird going on with his soul. Like he's still just a normal monster technically.
Or maybe it's like he has a very uh static kind of personality where he doesn't change too much in the way that he presents his personality or feels it, but then like it's very quick to snap into something else versus Killer Sans might go back and forth between a bunch of different personalities or facets of.
Yeah, I that one confuses me a little bit too, I'll be honest. And then the next panel kind of shows that, like, their motivations, where Murder's motivation is to gain LV because his hopes is that that will make him stronger and enough to be able to stop the human from doing the genocide routes. While Killer is more like he just wants it to stop.
Oh,
And he's just at a point where, like, he doesn't know what to do. There's literally nothing that he can tell what he should do. And then the last one is, I think, where we were getting confused because I thought that's what you were talking about is what their souls look like. Murder's still just looks like a normal monster soul, but Killer's soul gets really messed up with Kara's influence.
it's the cursed fidget spinner.
It is
Use
indeed a Killer's soul is a fidget spinner.
you spin that far fast enough and bam, or a top, whichever you prefer.
I prefer the fidget spinner because it's more memey. It's more memeable.
Last time we joked Killer's soul was like a fidget spinner. That is not
That's
correct.
right.
That is not correct because I was talking to someone and they said it's not like that, and they didn't really explain it to me how it's not. But then I did find some pictures, and I'll have to hunt them down, where you can sometimes see where the soul is in weird different shapes from that target shape. It's just a weird fusion between Kara and Sansa's soul, but it's not spinning as much as I wish it was actually spinning. It looked like it was wigged out and spiked out, and I think Killer would look like he was stressed in the image, so that kind of makes sense.
Ooh. Definitely a cool design. Needs a hug.
Mhm.
All of them do.
Yeah, I like Sans designs when they don't get too crazy away from like the original concept of Sans, but they're still doing something unique and engaging with it. And I think Killer's design really is very close to that because it's still very close to Sans, but you could tell something's wrong.
I think we need more low-key AUs like Sans, but he really likes K-pop. Or something like that. We need like a balance. Oh, this next one looks like a little conference.
Yes, so on June 3rd, 2016, Rahaf officially made Joiner join the group for Nightmare and Dust, or Murder Sands. Well, they wrote it to where, like, Murder was already there, but so far in my research, this is the first time I've kind of seen, like, the group forming, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it reminds me of what's the movie? Wreck-It Ralph when they've got like the quote unquote like the bad guy group.
Oh, yeah,
Just
like the bad
because
guy
you're a bad
therapy
guy
session, or
doesn't mean
like
you're a
something like
bad
Bad Guys
guy.
Anonymous.
He does not look comfortable being there.
Yeah, now the way they depict Murder and Nightmare in a way, I would, I isn't totally canonical. Then again, you have to remember these were the early days where all these different creators were just starting to get to know each other in different ways.
Mhm.
Um, because now, because we have it where like Nightmare's just like, oh yes, we're gonna go kill all the other Sanses, but now it's kind of been, you know, we kind of know that Nightmare wouldn't say that. It's not his motivation to kill; it's his motivation to cause like negativity and despair.
Yeah. The drawing aesthetic though is fabulous with Nightmare. I love it.
Oh, oh yes, his
Our tentacle boy.
I love the little blue shine on his head.
Yeah.
It makes him look extra goopy. And then on June 17th, 2016, we see this art piece by Miku95, and this I believe was reblogged by Rahaf. And until I find something else, this is the earliest depiction of art that sees like the big bad group that we all know and love today together: Nightmare, Dust, and Horror, Nightmare, Murder Sands, Horror, and Killer all together. Yeah, so it was
I'm guessing.
reblogged and it got like a lot of attention because of that.
Oh, cool.
If someone does know of an earlier piece depicting all four of these guys together, let me know. I would definitely love to see it and talk about it.
I'm assuming horror is the one that's in the middle.
Yep, that's horror.
Cool.
Horror tends to have like the bloody or torn shirt, the crack in the head, and the very big red eye.
He needs some milk. He needs to regain some calcium for that head.
That's true. Given that Horror's whole deal is that he's starving, I'm pretty sure he would take some milk.
There we go.
I'm back from the grocery store with the milk. Give this man some milk.
He needs to drink some Ovaltine.
God damn
The
the
best
Ovaltine.
drink.
Is that gonna be our running gag? Is the Ovaltine?
It connects them all. This is the thing that connects all Sanses together. And so, the headcanons that we create through this podcast are
Truly
phenomenal.
amazing.
Anyway,
Okay.
all right. We've got more to show and more to talk about.
All right. So on June 22nd, 2016, we see the user Moonkatia, who created this art, which is sort of their idea of having errors show up in the comic between Killer and Blue that wasn't continued. And it's really just kind of a cute nod to the Ask Error blog where Blue managed to become friends with Error after being kidnapped by him. But the Rahaf really liked it and reblogged it, even though they'd never planned on continuing that comic. And then we see Rahaf did some more artwork where they're kind of depicting like this conflict in the multiverse. This artwork came out on July 1st, 2016, and we see the major sands is kind of coming together. We even see cross sands here. So I don't know if this is showing the multiverse conflict lore really being explored or if we're adding on to what was already starting to form. I'm assuming it's the latter.
Man, the artists, though, they're so good.
Yes, they do a lot of their own comics now. Like I don't think Killer has been like totally abandoned in a sense, but they really do focus on their own original comics now, and their artwork is just gotten way better. I would definitely Rahaf Wabus. I would check out their blog on Tumblr. Their art is really good. And then on July 7th, 2016, we see them really joking about a lot of the like Nightmare X cross ships. And we kind of get some more established dynamic between like Nightmare and Killer. I think this is why we see JK use this is probably the main reason why we see JK use Killer in Underverse, because his creator really from the start kind of set him up to be Nightmare's henchman. Meanwhile, with Dust, I don't think we'll because early on with Dust, their creator was really kind of holding his lore to their chest where they didn't really want other people exploring it. That's as much as I love Murder Sands and Dust Sands, I don't think we're gonna ever see them in Underverse, unfortunately.
I'm looking at the comic that you sent, and just kidding, man, that got me.
I also think from these little comics from Rahaf that we get, like, we see these little AU interpretations that Nightmare isn't really a bad guy or really bad to those who work for him. And it's kind of this, like, playful nature with the end. He's not really hurting Killer or Cross, but basically just puts them in timeout. And I think that's where we get, like, a lot more of, like, the Nightmare, some of the AU interpretations where Nightmare isn't really a bad guy. It's just he's kind of forced to be a bad guy because of his needs.
Yeah.
I honestly, again, I love when people are just being creative and making stuff, so I like both interpretations of Nightmare. And then the next image we see here came out on February 9th, 2017. This is really where Rahaf redesigned and solidified Killer's look so that he could stand out from the other Sanses. And this is really close to the look that we see him in Underverse.
Cool. And now I get to see like the picture that you sent of Flame on Fire Dad. Who's who?
Oh yeah, you can kind of tell now who's who's who.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Oh yeah, I just thought that comic, the June 12th, 2017 one that I said was like, yes, Nightmare, I am your boss. Yeah. I just thought that was super cute. And then the next comic that we see, can you guess what the name of this other Sans is just by looking at him?
That's a good hold on. We've got a slash in the chest and then like flame hair. I thought it was a clown thing first because I saw the different colored like
Oh,
hair, but that's fire. So my bad. Unless it's a fire
so
clown, in which case it's awesome. But if not, that's also equally awesome.
it is not a clown. This is Color Sans. And the deal with
Okay.
Color Sans, so I know we had a comment like early on in the episode where someone asked if we would cover Seraphim Sans. And Color Sans and Seraphim Sans share a lot of similar story beats, where Seraphim Sans is Sans if he absorbed all 7 human souls. I believe that
Oh.
Color Sans is Sans if he absorbed just the 6 souls. Don't quote me on that because I haven't researched Color Sans yet. Super Yumna. So on June 21st, 2017, this comic is from Super Yumna. They're the creator of Color Sans from the AU called Othertale. I believe I sent you an animation of Othertale where it was kind of, I thought you would be interested in it because it kind of had like Handplate's vibes, but had
Ooh.
Sans as the assistant to Gaster and Undying was the patient. Yeah, so that's the AU he comes from called Othertale. So it's from this comic that came from Super Humana where we get like if you see images of like Killer and Color either shipped or being friends, or at least being friends, which I think canonically they are friends, because Rahaf really loved this comic and reblogged it. So it is kind of like accepted that they are at least friends.
Oh, cool. I
So it's
do
kind of
like
like
the
a
color.
possible redemption route for Killer.
I do like the different colors.
Yeah, so
The idea.
it's like it's there's red in there too, so I think it might be 7 human souls. But like in the animation with Color Sans, you can see where it changes colors
Mm.
because the power of the human souls are just kind of radiating out of him. How he got his skull busted up, I don't know. That will probably have to come if and when we ever get around to Othertale.
Yeah, he's turned into a one-person rave, which is awesome.
It's true. This is so true. I think
He
that's
doesn't
also
need glow sticks.
we don't see a lot of Color Sans, and I think half of it might be because he's a bitch to animate.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do wish we could see more of Color Sans because he seems like a really awesome AU.
Hmm.
And really, I could just kind of keep going on with these different comics from Rahaf's blog because they kind of go on for a while. It's just like Killer in varying different scenarios. A lot of them are so funny. Like there's one where I don't know how the scenario would have been set up, but Epic Sans is like talking to Killer about, well, if you cut off someone's leg or something, how do they feel pain in their leg? And they're like, because you cut off their leg. He's like, but the leg isn't there. What? Which I find kind of funny because the whole time I'm reading it, I'm like, you dorks have never heard of phantom pain.
Yeah.
It's because your brain goes, huh, I can't find where your leg is. I'm going to cause you pain until you locate the location of your leg.
Yeah.
That's what phantom pain is. It seems for the most part that Rahaf kind of keeps this AU really lighthearted, despite the horrible, horrible implications behind it.
I bet too that like perhaps they know their audience in the sense that they know that the audience kind of already has an idea of what they could do on the more gruesome side, and so it's just like let's make it a bit more lighthearted to show the other side that they may not expect, which I
I can
appreciate.
totally agree with that. Like the horrible stuff, the violence, like it's like, yeah, you get that. We don't need to tread that, which I
But
totally agree
friendship,
with.
hmm,
Friendship. Yes, let's give the serial killer some friends.
yes.
I do enjoy a lot of the nightmare group art of them just being boys, really.
You know, as we dive into all of these different forms of sands, there will literally be any kind of form of sands you can think of over time.
Oh
It
yeah,
doesn't seem
yeah,
to happen to all the other characters, save for Sans.
yeah. I think it really self perpetuates itself. Where
Yeah,
almost any time you create an AU, you have to start with Sans. Again, you don't. I say that generally because you don't have to start with Sans to create an Undertale. You really don't. But it's one of those things that if you create an AU, everyone's gonna ask, "But what about Sans?" If you don't focus on him.
yeah.
It looks like Rahaf Wabas really kind of let the AU go and separated. I'm looking at this post from March 31st, 2018 that kind of what I'm assuming is depicting them kind of parting ways with Killer. It's actually kind of sweet.
Aw.
It says this will be the last reblog for Killer Sans. Thank you for everything, everybody. Thank you for loving this character. Now I have to say goodbye to this character and now try something new.
Ah, okay.
I can totally understand that, like, because there's only so much you can kind of contribute to a certain like fan community, and I can understand like creator wanting to like go their own way and start creating their own material.
Hmm.
So this last piece we see with Killer here, this was from Rahaf concerning Killer on March 13th, 2001. It's kind of the last like official piece of art. I know they opened a separate blog called Rahofi Sketch, where I think they have posted further stuff. However, it's not as easy to go through because there's no archive option that I can just click on and go through like date wise. So I would say if you want to, hopefully I do think they probably have more art on there. You can go exploring on that blog.
Very cool.
So, do we have any other questions about Killer Sand?
I'm trying to see if I can find anything about any of the other characters that would be
Oh,
in
the
that world.
characters on their blog?
Yeah, or just like I don't know how much it relates to Undertale in terms of like, is there a Toriel and a Nazgul? Is there like a Frisk and Kara and Azrael, things like that, you know?
Um,
Like and
They're
Alphys
like
and Sundyne.
there really isn't in like something new because it's pretty much just the classic versions. They're just dead. You know what I mean?
Oh, gotcha. I guess
I
that
have
goes along with the
seen
name. I should have seen that coming.
right. I have seen like versions of like a swap version of Killer where it's like a papyrus instead. And if I can find the art, I'll show it on the podcast. It's really lovely art. There's some really lovely art. Yeah, there's not really a lot more to Killer than that.
And he needs a
yeah,
hug. A
he
hug,
does need a hug.
a tissue, and just appreciation.
Yeah, I definitely like when I first came into the fandom, I kind of really didn't like him, but I didn't know what his deal was. Because I was just like, okay, I understand what Murder Sans' deal was, but Killer? Is he just killing people for the fun of it? And the answer is kind of yes, but Killer Story parallels murders a lot. It's just an evil Kara is also involved. I'd like to headcanon that killer and murder story are pretty much the same. The only difference is in the AU, is Kara evil or not?
Gotcha.
Because if Kara is evil, then you get a killer. If Kara is not evil or not involved, you get a murder sans.
It's like Pokemon, if you have an Eevee and you level them up at night, you get one thing, and if you level them up in the day, you get another.
I love
My
that.
parallels might be a
Evolve
bit more
your
different.
sanses. How do
Yeah.
you want to evolve your sans? Collect them all.
We've got so many stones, and then the night and day. And we've got some other characters we can talk about. We've got
Murder Sans we can talk about, who's far more depressing.
That's true. Very true.
There's something else I need to correct from the last recording, is that I headcanon that Kara is good and Murder Sans' story, but bad in Killer Sans. Unfortunately, that is not correct. Kara is still evil, even in Dusttale, which is unfortunate. It's just a different story of the same kind of flavor.
And then the next character we're going to talk about is Murder, who can also be called Dust Sans, but canonically he's called Murder Sans. Now, Murder was created by a user who only goes by as Dusttale, who is Korean. And I believe at this point there's at least 3 different authors answering questions about Murder Sans. One of them has a separate Tumblr called Othertale, and they post a lot of UTAU content, not just Dusttale, but all kinds of different artwork. And I think they really kind of set up the blog because they were possibly getting a lot of questions about Murder Sans and just needed a place to answer all that. I had in my notes, if anyone knows the creator's real name, I would like to know, but I'm going to say don't, because I get the impression that the original creator doesn't want their name to be known. So please don't dig for that. I think they want their privacy respected, as well as one of the other creators, because there's 3 creators and only one of them has kind of come forward with like who they are on a different blog. It is kind of difficult kind of going through the Dust blog because a lot of it is in Korean. Yeah, the original creator of Dust, or Murder Sans, isn't an artist, and they were just kind of like tell you what they wanted for the design, and they kind of reblogged art that they were like, yeah, that's how I envision Murder Sans to be. Okay, so the blog seems to have opened sometime around May 2016. So the AU is called Dusttale, but Sans from the AU is called Murder Sans. So that's why we still get him called Dust Sans sometimes, or the fandom divulges to calling him Dust. I believe the creator said at one point that it's not correct, but they know what you're talking about when you call him Dust.
Gotcha.
So the creator, this is the description that he describes the way Murder Sans should look. His clothes are covered with dust of those he killed. He puts his hood up to keep the dust out of his face. His left pupil is cyan, encircled by red, and the right one is only red, which stands for the loss of the yellow justice but gained the red of determination. He frequently chatters with the phantom papyrus, which, for others, seems like just talking to himself. To him, the phantom is floating bust of his brother with red eyes and the red scarf. He says, "We're gonna have a mad time" to the human when he challenges them. He loves to kill the human, especially when it is cunning or cruel. Like I was kind of stating earlier, we kind of had a bumpy time with this AU early on because a lot of the different posts from early in this AU was a lot of what the creator was saying was contradictory about how they wanted murder to be used. So a, a lot of the different things that was reblogged early on in the AU says, if you plan to bring Murder Sans to RP or another AU, please contact either the official accounts. There's been issues with AUs and public RPs that could have spread out of character misunderstandings about Murder Sans. Other than that, any arts, comics, or fics based on Dusttale are welcome and appreciated. So you see how this sounds very contradictory?
Yeah.
We definitely see like a lot of conflict early in the blog with users not only being confused about the contradictory nature of I don't want you to roleplay him, and I don't want you creating AUs based off him. But if you want to make art, comic, and fictions based off him, that's fine. I think a lot of it had to do too with the language barrier and the understanding what these different terms meant.
Yeah.
On July 20th, 2020, we get an official answer from the Twitter Dusttale. They state that the RP restrictions have been lifted and the shipping restrictions could be lifted because the original creator really didn't like when Dust or Murder Sands was shipped with anyone. They're like, that's not the story I want to tell. Pretty much, you can really see like how uncomfortable they are just through their words. And then I think there was a last, well, it's not the last post, but it was, I thought it was an interesting post from August 12th, 2020. Someone asked, do you and the other Murder Sands creators plan to do anything else about this concept, or is your work done? And they said, that's all for now. We don't have plans to do any more. So there's a story posted on Archive of Our Own, which I think is like 7 chapters maybe, that's supposed to actually be the AU of Dusttale, but it's all in Korean. And I don't know if anyone's translated it or not. And I don't think the creators really had any intention of actually translating it, at least that I could tell, or authorizing like someone in particular to translate it. There's a few posts where people wanted to translate it into other languages, but from what I was trying to glean, I did not find an actual English translation for Dusttale.
Gotcha.
I think one of my questions right away that I had to try to look for was, why is the first thing Sans jumps to is murder everyone? And why isn't the first thing he jumps to is, let me go get the 7 human souls and beat the crap out of the human? And they did answer that question. They said in Dusttale, in their AU, Sans doesn't know where the souls are at. That's why he doesn't go and get them.
Oh, okay.
So that was their answer to that. Even with like Dust, of course, there's variants to Dust. There's the Dust swaps, which are like, what if Blue or Swap Papyrus went dusting, you know? I call it dusting. Or there's Dust Belief, which is, you've heard of Disbelief Papyrus, right?
I don't know much about them, other than I've seen someone use them as a character for roleplay, and then that was about it.
Okay, so the scenario around not Disbelief, but Disbelief, is Sans sacrifices himself. The part in the game where you kill Papyrus, basically Sans steps in the way and you kill Sans instead, and Papyrus escapes. Either Papyrus escapes or Sans teleports him away at last minute before he dies. And that's where we get the Disbelief AU, where instead of Sans, you fight Papyrus in the Judgment Hall. And there's even a really good fan game for it, too. So that's Disbelief Papyrus, because Papyrus stops believing in you. That's why it's called Disbelief.
Ah, okay.
So Disbelief is kind of that same scenario added on top of Papyrus begins experiencing or at least from what I believe, Papyrus begins experiencing the resets. Like he starts remembering the resets, so it drives him to eventually start going the Dust route the way Murder did.
Gotcha.
So yeah, it's definitely one of those AUs where it's the Dust scenario basically, or the Murder Sands scenario, where you can add Dust pretty much to any AU, and you can kind of get the idea of what that alternate AU is going to be about.
Interesting.
So there's a link here called Amino Apps that says Amino Maps, Undertale AUs, and it says Canon Dusttale Sans storyline, character and facts. And I think we can open that so that we can actually talk about what is happening in his actual story. Because this person who made this post, Dark Art, posted this in December 12th, 2021. And I think that they've pretty much gone over the canon material for him pretty thoroughly. So Murder Sans is a mad Sans who has a lust for trying to kill the human by killing others. He has been said that even though he's a mad berserker, he calculates plans ahead like a Sans. He's less tired than Undertale Sans, but still enjoys science fiction and tells cruel puns. If you were a different human, child, adult, he won't kill you on the spot, as he will observe you, but do something that resembles his human, he will kill you. Eyelight's usually white, turns red and blue when in combat. So the thing about, I think I mentioned this last time, that I kind of started my research not liking Killer Sans and liking Murder Sans. And then the more I researched about them, it kind of flip-flopped, where I started liking Killer Sans and disliking Murder Sans. But the reason I started liking Killer more than I liked Murder is, at first I thought Murder was just doing what he had to do to try to stop the human, and Killer just gave in and decided to do whatever the human wanted to do. And it turns out I was completely wrong. It turns out Killer is being manipulated by this evil Kara,
Ooh.
and it's not 100. What's going on is not 100% consensual. He's just been beaten down to a point where he goes along with what Kara is doing because he's been broken down so much mentally until Kara can take like full control over him. And so Killer is actually much more sympathetic because he's not killing people because he wants to. It's just he's been pushed to a point where like there's nothing else to do. For him, there's much more chance for a redemption arc once he gets out of his AU, which actually happens in his canon. You know, Nightmare comes, is like, you're gonna work for me now. So he gets out, and it is kind of debatable how canonical it, and if he actually does get that redemption arc. But Murder Sans, actual canonical Murder Sans, isn't as sympathetic as a lot of people seem to think he is, because he does kind of go through the same routine as Killer, where he's kind of mentally broken down. But the difference is he has come to this point where he no longer sees the real Papyrus as his brother. He has this
Aw.
phantom version of Papyrus who is like a hallucination, but he sees the phantom Papyrus as more of a true brother to him than the actual Papyrus. And he has come to a point where he is purely obsessed for fighting the human's sake, and not actually trying to stop everything that's happening. Because going through like a lot of the questions about what Killer Sans would do, like if someone or not Killer, but what Murder Sans would do if somebody tried to help him fight the human, or somebody tried to get him out of the AU or save everyone. Almost all the questions roll back to Sans is obsessed with fighting the human, and that's all he cares about. It's like a love-hate relationship where he loves to hate the human and bring them suffering, and nothing else matters to them anymore. He escapes his AU. He will. Unfortunately, that means that the murder trio can never be canon, which it couldn't have been canon anyways, because fanon version of Horror Sans is not at all like canonical Horror Sans. But essentially Murder Sans would always try to get back to his AU. All he cares about is getting back and fighting his human. That's all he cares about.
That doesn't sound like a happy life.
No, it's not happy. And in fact,
No,
like
not at all.
I think someone asked on Dusttale at one point, they asked, so what if the human never comes back? Like Sans beats them and the human never comes back. I think the answer was essentially that he would be lonely and sad, and there would be nothing else for him to do, because he would have already killed all the monsters waiting for the human to come back, and the human never comes back.
Unless they, he just, I mean, this is like a stupid little not fanon, but like headcanon thing of mine. He just has like a picture, like a crudely drawn picture of the human's face on it, and then just like attacks that, or one of the like dartboards, just
Oh,
picture
that's
of there, and
sad.
Gilby shoots the darts at it, and he's like, "This is not the same. Oh no."
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I think I was talking to someone about Killer's AU versus Murder's AU, because this is funny, is like Dust, it says here, Dust hates Killer Sans, as he actually allowed the human into their hands and has killed monsters with them. He won't show it, but he's passive-aggressive. But with Horror, they have a better relationship, even though Horror hates that Murder killed his brother. Those two have a very good relationship for similar situations with their human. But essentially, if you look at Killer's AU, him and Murder do seem to get along. But in Dusttale, the Dusttale canon, they were like, if Murder ever met Killer, they would not get along. So it's like, from whose perspective are you building like your headcanon from?
Yeah, there's
And
a
that's
lot.
what's very interesting about the Undertale AU is it's like whenever we talk about canon, have to be like, wait, whose canon are we talking about?
Right.
I think it's find it interesting. One of the things here says he will pay for things from ownerless shops and pays Girlby back. I just find that kind of funny, sad, interesting.
So
This is like,
he takes stuff from other shops, but then when he goes to Girlby's, he's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna give you some money for this. You deserve it."
no, he always pays for anything, even if he's already killed the owner.
Oh, gotcha.
Basically, yeah. I find it funny that he finally pays off his fucking tab after he murders Girlby.
I guess that's the only way he was paying off his tab. Oh
Like,
no.
son of a bitch, Sans.
Gotta love gotta love those little details of like, here's just a bunch of dark, depressing content. And then he finally paid off his tab.
Yeah.
And the worst
Yeah,
way.
one of the lines here says, when stopping the human, he might enjoy the process of stopping them as he is insane, but at the end, he is empty. Woof.
Oh.
Okay, yeah, then there's a bit here about Phantom Papyrus. Phantom Papyrus is not a ghost of Papyrus, only hallucination. Murder knows he is not real, but loves him like his real brother. Phantom can't harm or let anyone seen him aside Murder. The real Papyrus would never agree to his plan, except Phantom, as he tells him to continue and how many are left. Phantom blames Sans for killing everyone, including himself, but pressures him to continue.
Oh, it's like a guilt trip character.
Yeah, it's a pretty fucky hallucination where it guilt trips him for killing everyone, but then tells him to keep killing everyone.
Toxic friendships. Never a good time.
Yeah, Sans and other AUs, the creator has stated that murder in the multiverse is not up to them, as people can decide. However, here is how he will act in some AUs. He will not attack other AUs as his focus is on Dusttale. He won't hesitate to defend himself from another AU, but avoid it as much as possible. He's not too friendly or hostile to many Sanses. If trying to offer him help, he refuses as he believes what is
What he
his
did is
fault
his fault. Yeah.
and doesn't deserve happiness, like in Core or Dream. He would not kill Core Frisk. To him, Core doesn't look anything like Frisk. He's fine with them, but would refuse to go to the Omega timeline. But will let others from his AU go except the human. Interesting.
Wait, aren't they already dead? Or am I reading?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting because I assume, because wouldn't he need them to be able to increase his LV? I'm not sure about that one.
That's okay. You know what? It seems like most of these, because everything is put online pretty much as fast as they can really put it out there, which means that they probably, as like creators and authors and illustrators and whatever, like don't have as much time to really think about like the storytelling aspects and all the details that go behind that as much as they would
Right.
like to, probably. So they're like, oh, that's okay.
Right. It is one of those things, you're absolutely right, where sometimes a lot of these people were younger people, and a lot of times they're doing this stuff for fun. So
Yeah.
having consistency and getting too serious about what is and what isn't canon it'll drive you nuts. Back into the links I shared you, if we want to take a look at the comic, that it is not canon, but it is close to the canon because Dusttale does not, like, the blog does not say that like something someone else created is canon.
I'm looking at this port, so the link that you sent about the Tumblr comic from Calvatela.
So Cavaltea is they're the writer that did come forth
Gotcha.
and say their name from the Dusttale blog. They just reblogged it from, it looks like
Ah,
it's
okay.
Jessica Arts is the one who actually did the comic. So they reblogged it because it was so close to what they had written for Dusttale.
Yes. I love their boots physics. Their boots gravity physics.
Oh, like on Papyrus's boots?
Yeah, like just most of the art that I see, like everything fits him. And my little headcanon, well, it comes from Zarla's logic for it in their Handplays comics. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like the idea that like somehow, some way, I'm not sure if it's based on souls or magic from the souls or whatever, but like skeletons can kind of like fit in their clothes. Like when they
Mm-hmm.
put stuff on, like there's like a humanesque body figure underneath, but then if like they were to like take their shirt off or whatever, it's just bone. But in this
Right.
one, and other very few art renditions of the Skelebros, things just kind of like fall off of them because they don't fit and they are just bones, and I find it enjoyable. I mean, not this picture for the morality, just they seem very sad, but the art part of it I do enjoy.
So the next page shows Kara being evil, and that's where I was like, I'm like, oh, I have to take back my own words on that. Because Kara is
Oh,
still technically evil in this AU, and I'm like, damn it. Because even though I understand a lot of AUs hinge on Kara being evil, it's also one of those things that do kind of annoy me, and I think annoy a lot of people in the community, is because Kara is not evil. It's one of those things in the early days where a lot of people made the assumption Kara was evil because of how they presented themselves after you finish a genocide route.
I like how they made Kara really tall.
Yeah, it's really unsettling how they portray Kara in that scene. It looks like it's not a human. It looks like something you would find in the back rooms.
Which is cool. I like, again, not for like the morality of it, obviously. They're not having a good time. I always wish for people to have a good time. But
Oh
just the
yeah.
design of it is very cool. I like it. I like how
I kind of
creepy it is.
like how the bloody phantoms of the different characters are portrayed in the background in that panel.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see like Muffet and I think Toriel, probably Metaton, Alphys, and I'm not
I,
sure after that.
oh, that is Alphys in the middle. Okay. I was like, who has like the 3 points?
Yeah, that would be Alphys.
Besides, it'll be better to be killed by me instead, right? Oh no. Oof, there we
Yeah,
go.
I think a lot of senses eventually come to that conclusion. It's really fucking sad. Yeah, the next part is fucking brutal. It just gets worse.
Oh no. No. He's still talking. They're still
Yeah,
talking.
they're still talking. It's like, Sans, why did you have to fucking miss? God damn. I'm assuming in the next resets he gets better aim.
Oh, well, jeez.
Don't let Papyrus suffer at least. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Jeez Louise. Although, just as like a parallel, I would love, love, love to see how Sans would react to like a true kid version of Frisk or another human or whatever. Because like I
Um,
mean these kids like in the game and like I mean Frisk doesn't really say much if anything at all in the actual game. Kara has some stuff that they actually say. Um but like I work with kids and
mhm.
the weird stuff that they bring up is not what like Kara or Frisk really say or communicate. So I'd love for like a real kid personality how they would
I think
interact with the Skeller brothers, just as like a
I
little funny
think that
thing. Like,
I think that the Dusttale blog did state that if Murder met another human and he knew that like he wasn't in Dusttale, he knew he was in the multiverse at that point. that because I read it off before, where if he engages with another human, he won't attack them immediately, as long as they're not being like murderous or anything that reminds him of his human. He's cautious around them. He doesn't like being around them, but he won't attack them as long as they don't attack him.
Yeah, I remember that being in the amino thing. Like, just the idea of, like, a 5-year-old being like, like, with, like, a fake, like a toy plane or whatever, or car, and then just, like, being entertained by that for, like, a good 15 minutes,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then being like, well, you are different. You're not doing anything bad.
Mhm.
You're just needy as heck.
Yeah, because like in the next page it says, I was wondering what would break the skeleton first. Like, a child doesn't talk like this.
Yeah, right. Oh no, the horrible laughter of people in pain.
Yeah, and then on the next one is the one that's really brutal because it's animated.
Oh no.
Yeah. And
Oh crap.
that's the moment that I saw that and I was like, that is fucking visceral. I need to make sure Flame Mom's okay with viewing like extreme violence.
As long as we know it's fake, it's
I am
okay.
sorry I'm putting you through this pain.
It's okay. It's fake. It's fake.
Yeah, but yeah, once you see that little very gruesome animation, I think that's it for this comic.
I like how Sans has a turtleneck. As my
Yeah,
ADD really comes into play and is like, oh, look at that little detail.
yeah, that is something unique to like Murder Sands is the turtleneck, and honestly, I think it's comfy.
Yeah, like, I mean, I know that they probably don't feel temperature in the same way that other monsters and humans do, but the idea of them only wearing like a t-shirt and like leggings or shorts is like, ugh, cold.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
No, thank you. So seeing them in, I mean, not that they're having a good time anyway, but seeing them in a turtleneck, at least it's a
I
bit more
like
temperature comfortable.
this is
Temperature
my own
comfortable.
headcanon, is because in my own headcanon, monster skeletons are living monsters. They're not human skeletons. They just
Right.
resemble human skeletons. So to me, I really like headcanoning the idea that they still have all of like the senses that a living creature would have. So they do have a feeling of touch. They do have a feeling of like the cold.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah. Just
but
like,
that's my own personal headcanon.
yeah, that's cool. Like I know
Yeah.
like I mean they don't like in at least the game. I'm just going off of like what they've said in the game and what they haven't said. Like they don't bring up that they're cold. But
Mhm.
when Undyne is like, "How can you two live here?" and it's freezing and they're like, "Oh, I'm fine." And then there's other people in Snowdon that are like, "No, it's cold." Like the mouse one, it's just like huddled under their scarf and just other
Oh,
things like
yeah.
that. And then here's Sans with just a t-shirt, a very thin sweatshirt, and shorts. And I'm like, oh,
I I like the headcanon that they at least like feel. Because here's the thing, with Sans' design, here's the thing with me when it comes to Sans' design and living in Snowdon. There is a kid who lives across the street who literally dresses exactly like that in the winter to get on the bus.
that's true. That's fair. Yeah.
I For the past 3 years, I've seen this kid like get on the bus dressed in shorts and a t-shirt and an extremely light hoodie, and he makes me want to freeze when I see him because I'm like, how are you not freezing?
That's fair. Yeah. I did go. I mean, my high school was gigantic. I don't know who this person was whatsoever, other than when I was in high school, there was a boy who only wore a tank top, shorts, and like the flimsiest looking flip-flops I've ever seen, and I had no idea how they were still
Oh
tangible.
yeah, they also wear flip flops. I don't
Yeah,
know. There are some people who are just a different breed.
that's true. I like I like how we're slowly forming the idea that Canon Sans from Undertale is that kind of person.
Yeah, because he's lazy. And I just see him as the type, he's not checking the weather.
I guess they wouldn't
He's
really
not
have
checking the
anywhere to check the
temperature. He's
weather.
just putting on the first thing he can that doesn't smell bad. Well, with that, do we have any more questions about Killer and Murder Sands?
Not really. Other than I wonder if they would like a hug from anybody that they seem to sort of get along with. They need a hug.
Well, I don't know how canon is to Nightmare, but maybe Killer gets some hugs from Nightmare.
There we go. Okay, cool.
Maybe. I don't know.
You get like the Morgana
And
pet and hug and
it's
whatever
also one
from
of
the
the
Little
things
Mermaid.
where Murder could always get a hug from Papyrus. He just chooses not to anymore.
That's true. I imagine that Nightmare, if he ever did hug, it would be like Morgana from The Little Mermaid 2: Return to the Sea.
Gotcha. God, I haven't thought about that movie in years. I had that movie too. All right, cool. So next time we're you and me, when we're able to record, we'll be recording Underverse. We'll be talking about Underverse. So if you want to go back sometime, probably won't record until in January again because I'm going to take a huge break so that I can go over schoolwork, and I'm being pressured at my actual work to work more days because it's the holidays and we're lacking on crew. So mainly for my own sanity, I have a lot of stuff I need to go through at home, trying to declutter my house, stuff like that. So unfortunately, we won't record again until the new year. But yeah, if you want to go back and watch Underverse, and if you want to get any questions for that, that'd be great. I've already taken a crap ton of notes that I'll need to review. Also with Silver, we're bringing Silver Chaos on as a backup host for whenever our schedules conflict, and if I can see if I can get him to record. We're gonna try, I think I gave the idea that we'll try to cover Glitchtale with him, because I didn't want to cover something like Underverse with him, and then you would miss out on that since we've been building up to that. With Silver Chaos, we'll probably cover like more one-off AUs or AUs that make more sense within their own like bubble.
Sounds fun.
All right. And with that, please support your local metaphysical space skeletons. See you next
Yes, and
time.
have a safe and wonderful winter season
Yes, indeed.
until the New Year's.